heard about some friends who were in Papua New Guinea on the island of Umboy, which separates New Britain from the main island of Papua New Guinea. And they had quite a few experiences there that were indicative of living pterosaurs on Umboy Island. And then, of course, I had also heard about Dwayne Hodgkinson, who was in one of the services in World War II. And so I was convinced that there were living pterosaurs in that part of the world. And then I heard about the sconces and their sightings when they were missionaries there in New Britain. I got to know them pretty well and actually went and interviewed Harriet, the mother, and heard about her sighting from a very short distance, maybe 20 feet away, for approximately 5 minutes, as she walked from the top of Kaiko village to the bottom. Her son Steve lived at the top of the village, her son Mark lived at the bottom. As she walked out of Steve's house and onto the trail that goes down through the village along the edge of the cliff, there was a pterosaur that was right next to her, about 20 feet away, soaring over the canyon.
Something caught my eye to the right of me, and as I glanced over, I saw something that I had only before witnessed in books. I didn't know there were such creatures at all, but it had a big wingspan. It had no tail. It had scalloped or webbed wings at the back. It had a very sharp, long beak. I never saw it open, but a long, narrow beak. And then out the back of its head was a crest that went out the back. I was actually terrified because it was such an unusual thing, and being in a very remote village in a country like New Guinea, it was really a frightening activity for me.
It just went along at the same speed she was going until she got to the bottom of the village. At that point, it started getting closer to her, and she had heard stories about these creatures picking people up and dropping them. And so she took off running for her son Mark's cabin and got inside before that happened.
I know exactly what I saw when I saw it. I could take you today if we could go there. I could take you to the spot. And it's the same area that my husband and Steve saw the 3 other ones going down the branch of another river. I could take you there today, and I know what I saw.
Were they have feathers, or was it more leathery like?
Had no feathers. If I was to describe it, I would say it was more like maybe snake skin.
Did you see scales, or was it just smooth?
No, it was more smooth than scales, but it had no feathers, no covering like that of any kind.
Was it shiny, or did you notice that?
It was kind of like a battleship gray color. Maybe a little lighter than that in color, but I can't say that it was shiny. It would have been a dull, leathery look.
I told her if Steve ever goes back over there, I'd like to go with him. Last summer she told me he was going, and so I talked to Steve, and he said he'd be happy to have some people go with him. So Pete and I met with him and set up our trip to Papua New Guinea. Steve kind of made it all happen because he introduced us to the tribes up there. He didn't have to do that, but he was quite excited about what we were doing. And of course, he and his father Marv had seen these creatures flying across the sky at pretty high altitudes, but they definitely were pterosaurs, and they knew that, and so they were equally convinced that pterosaurs were there, and he understands the significance of these creatures being found, and therefore was eager to help us. And so he told the local people what we were doing, and many of them were very excited about helping us out. I think at Galemi, it had been a couple weeks after Steve was up there. Steve never made it to Galemi, but he sent word to Galemi that we were coming. So apparently somebody made it to Galemi and told them that these people were coming. But we were held up at least 2 weeks by this cyclone that had gone through there. And so I think a lot of them thought either we weren't coming or maybe we never were going to come or whatever. So when we kind of landed there in our helicopter, kind of caught them a little bit by surprise, I think.
Well, anyway, we got on the helicopter, flew us up over a live volcano, steaming lava below us. Flew through some valleys, mountains and volcanoes to the right and to the left. They took us into a series of ridges and valleys, and lo and behold, there was a heliport, or an area that was flat enough to use to fly in a helicopter. We dropped down. Bill said bye. And there we were with all our gear laying on the ground, and probably half a dozen to a dozen Papua New Guinea villagers looking at us like, "Who are you?" The first day, within hours of being there, I thought we ought to look for an observation point. So I got back on the main path, which is on a ridge. It's the top of the ridge. The ridge is something like that. With valleys on both sides, and the middle part, the flat part, varies from just a few feet to maybe 20 feet, 30 feet wide. Path runs down the center and up the grade. So I got up on the grade and went up, and I found an area that looked like would work. It wasn't very far, about 150 feet from our hut, and I took the camera, plopped the camera right down there, aimed it down the valley, and there were two trees in our way. We didn't say anything. I thought I could shoot around the trees. Next thing I know, they got the idea, I think through our talking back and forth, that the trees were in our way. So they just pulled out their hatchets and axes and chopped them down. And we finally showed them pictures of the pterosaur. And they looked at us like, "Oh, that's nice. What is it?" They didn't know what a pterosaur was. We were in the land of the pterosaurs, and they were actually on an island, as we found out later. But the young people had never seen one. The reason they haven't seen them is as soon as they move into a village and they've been there and they birth there and they grow up there, the pterosaur leaves those areas. It goes down to more wild state where they can find food and not be bothered by people being around them.
Well, let me interject one thing. One thing became obvious to, I think, both of us after we were there a short time is they kill anything that comes close to the village.
Yeah.
Parrots, eagles,
and pterosaurs.
Yeah.
Early on. That's where the stories come of pterosaurs, is when they killed them.
Well, let me elaborate just a little bit on that. There were two older gentlemen that were very helpful to us, that spent a lot of time with us. One was named Friday. Friday was 62, and the other was Julia. And I don't know exactly how old Julia was.
Pretty close to the same.
Close to the same age. When they were youngsters, actually, Friday said it was exactly 50 years ago, when they were living in a different village. They killed a pterosaur with a gun. I assume this was not too long after the missionaries came, and the missionaries probably had the gun. They killed the pterosaur and they cooked it and fed the whole village with three large pots full of meat.
Tasted like pork.
Yeah, so the older folks knew about the pterosaurs.
Right.
They had seen them. And the pterosaurs sometimes wandered over in that area. Otherwise, Harriet Sconce would not have had the sighting there at Kaiko, which was just down the cliff a ways, 1,000 feet below us. So the young folks didn't know, but the older folks did. To the east of the area we were, there was a large area, I'm thinking probably 20 to 25 miles you could go without seeing any sign of native villages or any sign of people. And I'm thinking that's probably where the pterosaurs mainly inhabit nowadays.
Right.
I think, eventually have success. But we want to talk specifically about that day. We got there on March 19th, and 6 days later, on March 25th, we had a pretty momentous occasion. You were sick that day and in bed. I went up to the observatory, and around noon, I decided to go back down to the hut and get something to eat. I took the camera with me, thinking that if there was a sighting while I was down there, I would have a camera. And then tell us what happened after that.
Well, I was in my hammock and I heard big bird, and big hubbub. I started to hear Milt talking about get the picture. Where is it? And Julia was talking. I think Friday was there. I think there were kids. There were women. I mean, they were all pointing up at the sky. I came out. I grabbed the camera that I had, which is my was the high definition camera that we're using right here, and I looked up into the sky and I saw it almost right away. It was almost directly above me. It was larger than any of the eagles or any of the other birds that we'd seen. Leathery, had the claws on the wings. It had what looked like feet. Couldn't see much of the head, or I didn't really, I don't know, see the head. But I saw the animal and I was just stunned. You just look at it like, whoa. And then I got the camera, so I turned the camera on and I tried to focus in on it, but it was a very bright day. Almost no clouds in the sky except for very high clouds, white. So I could not get a good view of the thing. I only had a LCD screen to look at. Didn't have a viewfinder, like a hole to look through, a peephole that I could have shaded my eyes. I just shot it up into the air, hoping that I would get an actual shot of this thing. As it turns out, I got 130 frames or so of the thing. Some of it blurry, some of it better than others.
Yeah, you can kind of see that some sort of indication of claws on the wings or feet.
Okay, that first time we saw this videos, though, you blew one up and you could see the claws as a bump and you could see the wings as individual. It was bigger than that. This is blurry.
Well, that's because of the
Video part.
video part, yeah. Then
If you can take one,
here's another shot right here.
now I can almost see the hands or the claws.
Yeah, depends which frame it is. See, that one there seems to show the hands on there. This one here is kind of blurred. And here's another shot right here, and this one here, I sharpened the daylights of it, and
That's what I'm talking about.
all computer, nothing requiring artwork.
Yeah.
And here's another one right there where you can see it. Play.
Oh, there you got some claws on the wings.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Then we have another one right here. So basically, here's the unenhanced as is.
Yeah.
Now with it kind of enhanced, you can kind of see some right there. Some sort of indication. Now, I have seen some circumstances where they get from the right angle on these, they do look like they're somewhat slanted back, but they still have feathers. From one particular angle.
Let's see that one.
It still doesn't look the same, and notice how much fatter that is back there.
Because I think the wings are straight. They're not.
Yeah, that one goes straight out.
They aren't pulled forward.
Yeah. See how that one there is more straight out?
Obvious feathers too.
Yeah, the feathers are most evident on it. Now let's go compare it to that. Even with it unenhanced,
So the fact that it doesn't have a tail.
Well, it's a different type. I wouldn't even call this really a tail. It's not the same as that. See?
The wings are different too.
Yeah.
The wings go forward and then back,
Like-
whereas the eagle is and the turkey vulture are straight out. All I can tell you is that the animal we saw, and that it was a pterosaur, and it flew not like a bird. It soared. It was able to make small adjustments by moving its wings a little, shaping the wing. It flapped a little, but it was mostly just to turn itself fast. The thing changed its wing shape just a little bit and took the updraft and went straight up in the air and went into a cloud, probably about 6,000 feet in just 15 seconds or something like that. But I would say we viewed the thing for at least a minute or two.
Now you said 6,000 feet. It's important to remember for our viewers that we were at about 4,000 feet at that point. So it was like a couple thousand feet above us.
Right.
I had forgotten that I had brought my camera down to the hut. I just totally panicked. I'll admit it.
Well, I did the same thing, too.
But I did go out and look at it with my naked eye for, maybe 2 or 3 minutes we saw it out there. And it was an awesome sight. As it was off to my left a ways, and then it started flying, so it was directly overhead before it flew off into the cloud. And when it was directly overhead, I began to see some appendages sticking out the front and the back, but I couldn't see those when it was off at an angle. So unfortunately, we weren't able to zoom in on that because that would have shown more detail. Mm-hmm. But that was a pretty very awesome experience to be able to see a living pterosaur in that village. We also had an occasion, of course we had heard from people in that area of the world that these are bioluminescent, at least on the bottom side they have a bioluminescent area. And we had another sighting where Friday, Julia, and I think maybe a couple others saw the light about 5 a.m. in the morning flying toward the village, and then it turned and flew west. It was coming from the southeast, then turned and flew west, and then disappeared out of sight. I think that was the day before or the day after the sighting on March 19th. You probably got it in your notes.
I think it was after.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were there almost another 3 weeks, and we had no sure sightings.
Right.
But we had, the one thing that time did allow us to do was to talk to many people there, and we began to get the same confirmations that older people were aware of this creature, younger people weren't so aware of it.
Right. They got a little bit of confusion with them as to if the thing had feathers or not. I guess you can say that they were doing their best trying to understand. They simply hadn't seen the animal for themselves. So there was some confusion there. But the older folks, weren't many of them. I would say there may be total of 6 folks that we talked to who had seen the animal, could confirm that it was there on the island, and had seen it for themselves, if not killed one or eaten one.
Another thing, we were stationed right on the main highway, so to speak, which was nothing but a trail. Even that would be glorifying it a little bit too much in certain places. But it was the track that they used to get toward the coast. And so anybody inland that was going that direction had to go right by our observatory.
Yeah.
So we were able to visit with many people from other villages farther inland.
Right.
And one thing that seemed to be kind of universal is that the farther inland the people were, the more knowledge they had of this creature.
Right.
Wasn't there a report that there had been a pterosaur that had built a den, sort of, in one of those big trees?
Yes. I saw 2 trees that had big nests at the center, but maybe the tree was 200 feet tall, maybe about 100 feet there was this large nest, but it had been broken by the hurricane on 2 different occasions. They said there was another one down the stream further that was like that wasn't broken up, and that was the one that they were going to. That's the one I think that eventually they'll probably find this animal. But they're not going to be able to do it until they really get organized, because this is going to be arduous getting down there and more arduous getting back, because it's going to be going against the stream. And they won't be able to fly in, and they won't be able to walk in very easily. But that's what we're hoping.
Well, it's easy to see how these creatures could remain undiscovered in an area like that.
Totally remote. This is as remote as you're going to find anywhere in the United States.
There's just no way to get into it, and it's perfect habitat for the pterosaur, because they have these steep mountainsides that have these overhangs and caves and whatnot. Perfect home for them. And then they got fish down in the rivers and small animals around.
Oh yeah,
so
lots of fish.
Yeah,
There's lots of fish. Easy fishing. We were able to eat fish whenever we wanted them, because there were so many of them. I imagine a animal that's designed to catch fish would have no trouble when it's hungry.
one thing I remember about the reports of the people that have gone to Papua New Guinea or Umboy Island in search of these creatures is the islanders talk about how the creature comes down off of the mountain, swoops over the ocean, and picks fish out of the water. So that's where I first learned that they like fish. And so if there were fish in the rivers, that would be a great habitat for the pterosaur.
Right. Might be interesting for me to note some of the things that the older people have told me about the animal, such that it lays eggs. It lays eggs, and its eggs are about the size of a pomelo, something like that. They're white, lay 4 or 5 eggs at a time when they do, but they don't lay eggs every year. The nests are built more like a cave. They use large sticks, large branches, like so.
Banana stalks as well.
And banana stalks. Banana stalks more or less like the siding, but the big sticks for like the platform. And apparently the thing has a top and side and so forth. It's not just a bird's nest type of a thing. And more than one of them live in they stay inside these cave-like nests for long periods of time. They don't come out every day. They don't fly out every day and say hi.
And when they do fly out, it's usually nighttime.
And when they come out, it's at night mostly. Although our sighting was in the day. We also had some sightings at night. I saw red streaks and white streaks that were not meteors. They were horizontal, they were below the horizon, and they were moving rapidly, but they were moving essentially in the directions that we were told that they always move. The ones that went over Kaiko, we were at about a level where we were even with the lights. So we were actually watching lights go from this direction to that direction. And then over on the Silo, the largest mountain in the area, which is on the left side, as I looked at the island from where I was, our observation point, I saw a red streak going from the top of the mountain over to a ridge on the left, and then back again about 2 or 3 minutes later. Red streak below the horizon, below the level of the mountain, and this way. So the bioluminescence, the luminescence of these animals is one thing. They know about the animal. They know, they aren't surprised. You may be surprised who listen to this that there's an animal that flies and makes light, its own light. Well, this is one of the common things that we've heard before, even though you don't believe it. We've seen it for ourselves, so we're believers in that. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. One of the things we've talked about is the problems that the cyclone created. But the cyclone also may have been a blessing in the respect that we had heard reports that after a storm, these creatures come out. And so you would have more chance of seeing one during the daytime. And this was not long after the storm that we saw the creatures, or that one creature flying very high in the sky. An interesting thing about that particular sighting, and I was thinking about this at the time I was looking at it, it was so high in the sky, but still it was very visible, quite visible, which gave us some idea of how big it was. And as you observed, the clouds that it flew into were higher than the mountains next to us, which were probably a couple thousand feet higher than we were.
Right.
So it was very high in the sky.